The bridge of the Elysium Vanguard hummed with quiet efficiency, the crew navigating the vast void of space with practiced precision. Captain Alara Quinn stood at the command console, her piercing gaze fixed on the holographic map displaying a faint signal emanating from the edge of Iranian-controlled space. "Status on that distress signal?" she asked, her tone calm but commanding. "Triangulated to the Tryon 7 mining colony," replied Lieutenant Malik, the communications officer. "But there's something strange, Captain. The colony was abandoned over 2 centuries ago. No records of any activity since." Alara frowned. "And yet here we are, picking up a signal. Could be a trap." "We've survived worse," said Lieutenant Commander Reyes, her second-in-command. His tone was light, but his hand lingered near the holster of his sidearm. "True," Alara said with a faint smirk. "Prepare a recon team. We're not ignoring this." As the Vanguard approached Tryon 7, the once thriving mining colony came into view on the ship's main display. The planet's surface was a desolate expanse of gray rock and crumbling infrastructure, the skeletal remains of massive mining rigs casting long shadows under the planet's dim sun. "Orbit established," called out the helm officer. "No signs of life detected." Alara leaned forward. "Malik, keep the comms open. Reyes, you're with me. Let's find out who or what is sending that signal." The shuttle touched down near the source of the transmission, its engines kicking up clouds of gray dust. Alara led the team out, her boots crunching against the rocky terrain. The air was thin and cold, the kind that made every breath feel deliberate. She pulled her visor down, scanning the horizon for movement. Nothing stirred. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the junior officers, glancing nervously at the towering ruins around them. Reyes shot him a grin. "Relax, kid. The ghosts here are probably just bureaucratic oversights." Alara ignored the banter, her focus locked on the towering structure ahead, a central command hub, its walls battered but still standing. The faint signal pulsed louder as they approached, a rhythmic beacon that seemed to beckon them closer. Inside, the hub was a cavern of shadows, illuminated only by the faint blue glow of the team's portable lights. Dust floated in the air, disturbed by their footsteps. Alara moved with purpose, her hand hovering over her sidearm. The signal drew them deeper into the structure, down a narrow corridor lined with rusting panels. "Here," said Reyes, pointing to a terminal that flickered weakly with life. Alara nodded. "See if you can pull anything from it." Reyes worked quickly, bypassing corrupted security protocols with a combination of skill and brute force. The screen flared to life, revealing a fragmented data log. Lines of text scrolled across the display, chaotic but tantalizingly familiar. "Encrypted," Reyes muttered. "This'll take some time." Alara's comm buzzed. "Captain," came Malik's voice, tense and hurried. "We've picked up movement, several vessels entering the system. They're not broadcasting identification codes." Her jaw tightened. "Understood. Get the Vanguard ready for defensive maneuvers. We'll extract soon." Reyes looked up, his expression grim. "Got something?" "It's a data cache, Captain. Looks like historical records, but most of it's locked behind heavy encryption. Whoever left this didn't want it found. Can you download it?" Alara asked. "Already on it," he replied, fingers flying over the controls. The terminal let out a high-pitched whine as the transfer completed, then fell silent. Alara's comm crackled again. "Captain, enemy ships are closing fast. They'll be in firing range within minutes." "Move," she barked, and the team sprinted back toward the shuttle. The Vanguard was already under fire when they returned. Streams of plasma lit up the void, barely missing the ship's sleek hull as the Iranian patrol ships closed in. Alara's shuttle docked with a jarring thud, and she bolted to the bridge. "Report," she snapped. Malik's fingers flew over his console. "3 enemy ships, Captain. They're fast and armed to the teeth. They're demanding we surrender." "Not happening," Alara said, sliding into her chair. "Evasive maneuvers. Reyes, give me targeting solutions. Let's remind them who they're dealing with." The Vanguard moved like a predator, its thrusters roaring as it dodged incoming fire. Alera's crew worked in perfect unison, their movements a symphony of precision and determination. Reyes targeted the nearest patrol ship, and a volley of ion blasts disabled its engines, sending it spinning into the void. "Two left," Malik called out. "They're adjusting their formation," Reyes warned. "Trying to box us in?" "Not today," Alera muttered. "Plot a course through that asteroid field. Let's see if they're brave enough to follow." The Vanguard dove into the dense cluster of rocks, its hull skimming dangerously close to jagged surfaces. The pursuing ships hesitated, their pilots unwilling to risk the treacherous terrain. It gave the Vanguard the opening it needed to slip away, leaving the patrol ships scrambling to regroup. Once they were clear, Alera exhaled deeply. "Damage report?" "Minor," Malik replied. "Shields took most of the hits. No casualties." "Good. Reyes, I want that data decrypted ASAP. Whatever we found back there was worth a lot of trouble." Hours later, Alera stood in the dim glow of the war room, staring at the decrypted fragments Reyes had managed to pull from the data cache. The words felt like ghosts, whispering secrets of a forgotten time. "They knew," she said softly, her voice barely audible. Reyes glanced up. "Knew what?" "That humanity wasn't just a myth. They knew we existed. And they erased us anyway." The fragments detailed a conspiracy that spanned centuries, a calculated effort by the Iranian Alliance to remove all traces of humanity from the galactic record. The reasons were unclear, but the intent was unmistakable. "This changes everything," Reyes said, his voice heavy with disbelief. "If the Alliance covered this up, who else knows? And why are they so afraid of us?" Alera's expression hardened. "We're going to find out. And we're not running anymore." A notification blinked on the console. Malik's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, incoming transmission from Zareth Prime. It's public." Alera activated the display, and the image of High Chancellor Kale Morinth filled the screen. His voice carried a cold, calculated authority. "To the fleet calling itself human, you are trespassing in Iranian space. Turn back now, or face annihilation." The transmission ended as abruptly as it began. Alera stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to her crew. "All hands to battle stations," she ordered. "If they think we're just myths, it's time we remind them why legends are born." The council chamber of Zareth Prime was a dome of polished stone and glinting crystalline panels, its architecture designed to awe and inspire. Today, however, awe was replaced by tension. High Chancellor Kale Morinth stood at the center of the room, addressing the gathered representatives of the Iranian Alliance. Their faces, some lined with age and wisdom, others youthful and determined, reflected a mix of fear and skepticism. "Make no mistake," Kale declared, his voice firm. "The arrival of the human fleet is not a coincidence. It is an existential threat. If the myths are true, these beings are capable of dismantling the delicate peace we have built." A murmur swept through the chamber. A silver-haired representative from the planet Thelmus raised a hand. "Chancellor, these so-called humans have not yet attacked. Should we not attempt diplomacy before jumping to conclusions?" Kale's expression darkened. "Diplomacy?" His voice dripped with disdain. "Do you suggest we welcome creatures whose legends describe them as destroyers, conquerors? Have you forgotten the ancient wars? If humanity is truly what they claim, their very presence will ignite chaos." Another representative, a tall figure with emerald green skin, leaned forward. "Chancellor, we cannot base policy on fear alone. We have no proof of their intentions." Kale's hand clenched into a fist behind his back. "Their intentions are irrelevant. Their existence is the threat. If we allow them to establish themselves, they will undermine the stability of our alliance. I urge you all to approve immediate action. Eliminate the fleet before it can grow into something we cannot control." The room fell into a tense silence. Kale's gaze swept over the council, his expression hard. He had spent years cementing his authority, ensuring that fear of the unknown would keep his colleagues in line. Today, he would exploit that fear once more. On board the Elysium Vanguard, Captain Alera Quinn stood in the observation deck, watching the swirling patterns of a distant nebula. The peaceful view felt like a cruel irony given their current situation. The Alliance's hostility was clear, and every decision she made carried the weight of her crew's survival. The door behind her slid open, and Lieutenant Commander Reyes stepped inside, carrying a datapad. "Got some intel from the decrypted files," he said, handing it to her. "You're going to want to see this." Alara took the pad and skimmed the data. Her eyes narrowed as she read about a covert initiative known as Project Obscura. The fragments suggested a deliberate effort by the Alliance to erase humanity's presence from galactic history. Records, artifacts, even genetic evidence systematically destroyed or hidden. "They were thorough," she murmured. "This wasn't just fear. It was a purge." Reyes nodded. "The question is, why? What could we have done to make them go to these lengths?" "That's what we need to find out," Alara said, her voice firm. "And we'll start by forcing them to talk." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we do that? The last time we tried to talk, they sent warships." "They'll send more," Alara replied. "And when they do, we'll make it clear we're not backing down." As expected, the Alliance's response was swift. Hours later, the Elysium Vanguard received a transmission from an approaching fleet. The holographic display on the bridge lit up with the image of an Iranian officer, his pale blue skin and angular features betraying no emotion. "This is Commander Vrel of the Iranian Defense Fleet. You are ordered to cease all activity and surrender your vessel. Failure to comply will result in your destruction." Alara stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back. "Commander Vrel, this is Captain Alara Quinn of the Elysium Vanguard. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. We mean no harm." "Your intentions are irrelevant," Vrel replied coldly. "You are trespassing in Alliance space. Surrender or face the consequences." Alara's expression hardened. "We will not surrender. However, we are willing to engage in dialogue." "Surely, destruction is not your only option." Vrel's gaze flickered, just for a moment, betraying a trace of uncertainty. "The decision is not mine to make. You have 1 standard hour to comply. After that, you will be fired upon." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Well," Reyes said, breaking the quiet, "that went about as well as expected." Alara ignored the comment. "Malik, monitor their movements. Reyes, prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers. If they want to fight, we'll give them one." The Elysium Vanguard moved through the asteroid field like a predator stalking its prey, using the dense terrain to its advantage. The Iranian fleet followed, their larger ships struggling to navigate the narrow passages. Alara's strategy was simple: stay 1 step ahead and force the enemy into a vulnerable position. "Captain," Malik called out, "they're splitting their forces. 2 ships are trying to flank us." Alara nodded. "Reyes, deploy countermeasures. Let's give them something to chase." Reyes activated a series of decoys, small drones that mimicked the Vanguard's energy signature. The drones darted into the asteroid field, drawing the Iranian ships off course. "Decoys working," Malik reported. "They've taken the bait." "Good," Alara said. "Now let's deal with the ones still on our tail." The Vanguard turned sharply, its thrusters flaring as it maneuvered behind the nearest Iranian ship. Reyes fired a precision ion blast, disabling the ship's engines and leaving it adrift. "1 down," Reyes said with a grin. 2 to go. The remaining ships regrouped, their movements more cautious now. Alara watched their patterns closely, her mind racing with possibilities. "They're learning," she muttered. "Trying to anticipate our moves?" Reyes glanced at her. "So, what's the plans?" Alara's eyes narrowed. "We do the unexpected." Minutes later, the Vanguard emerged from the asteroid field, its engines burning bright as it headed straight for the lead Iranian ship. The sudden move caught the enemy off guard, their ships scrambling to adjust their formation. "Malik, open a channel," Alara ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Commander Vrel once more. His expression was tense, his composure cracking under the strain of the battle. "Captain Quinn," he said, his tone sharp. "This is your last warning." "No, this is yours," Alara interrupted. "We have your ship in our sights. Stand down, and we'll cease fire. Vrel hesitated, his gaze flickering to something off-screen. Alara pressed on. You know what's at stake, Commander. Do you really want to explain to your superiors why you lost an entire fleet trying to chase a myth? For a moment, the bridge was silent, the tension so thick it was almost palpable. Then Vrel's image disappeared, replaced by a single message on the display. Retreating.
For now.
A collective sigh of relief swept through the Vanguard's crew. Back in the war room, Alara and Reyes reviewed the data they had collected during the skirmish. The decrypted files from Tryon 7 painted a grim picture of the Alliance's actions, but they also hinted at something deeper, a hidden archive on Zereth Prime that could hold the answers they sought. This isn't just about us, Alara said, her voice resolute. It's about every species the Alliance has manipulated, every truth they've buried. If we don't expose them, who will? Reyes nodded. Then we'd better be ready. They won't let us get close, without a fight. Alara's gaze hardened. Let them try. We've come too far to turn back now. As the Elysium Vanguard set its course for Zereth Prime, Alara couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity had been erased once before. She would not let it happen again. The atmosphere aboard the Elysium Vanguard was tense but focused. Every crew member knew the stakes. They were heading straight into enemy territory, aiming for the heart of the Iranian Alliance, Zereth Prime. The data retrieved from Tryon 7 pointed to a hidden archive within the Alliance's capital that could expose the truth about humanity's erasure. Captain Alara Quinn stood in the center of the bridge, her sharp gaze fixed on the glowing star map. Time to Zereth Prime, she asked. 2 hours, Captain, Malik replied from the comm station. No sign of pursuit yet, but I doubt that'll last. Reyes leaned on the edge of her console, his expression a mix of concern and determination. They'll be waiting for us. You know that, right? Alara nodded. Of course. But we're not here to hide. If they want to fight, we'll give them one, but on our terms. The bridge fell silent for a moment, save for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Then Malik's voice broke through. Captain, incoming transmission. It's from Zereth Prime. Alara straightened. On screen, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing High Chancellor Kale Morinth. His icy demeanor filled the room like a storm cloud. Captain Quinn, he began, his voice sharp and deliberate, you've shown remarkable tenacity. But this is the end of your journey. Turn your fleet around, and you may yet survive. Alara stepped closer to the display. Chancellor Morinth, we're not here to conquer. We're here to uncover the truth, something your alliance has worked very hard to bury. Kale's lips curled into a faint smirk. You speak as though you know what truth is, Captain. Humanity's time in the stars ended centuries ago for a reason. You do not belong here. Alara held his gaze, her voice steady. That's not your decision to make. We're not the myths you've made us out to be. We're real, and we're not going anywhere. Kale's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. The full might of the Alliance fleet awaits you. If you proceed, you will be destroyed. The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Reyes crossed his arms. Well, that was subtle. Alara turned to her crew. We knew this wouldn't be easy. They'll throw everything they have at us, but we're not backing down. Malik, send a message to the fleet. Prepare for combat. We're making history today. As the Vanguard approached Zereth Prime, the Alliance fleet came into view. Dozens of sleek, heavily armed warships hovered in formation, their weapon systems primed and ready. The Vanguard and its smaller escort ships looked almost insignificant by comparison, but Alara knew their strength lay in more than numbers. Malik, open a fleet-wide channel, she ordered. The calm officer nodded. You're live, Captain. Alara's voice rang clear across the fleet. This is Captain Quinn. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always come out stronger. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for the truth, for every species the Alliance has silenced. Stay sharp, trust your training, and remember, we are humanity, and we will not be forgotten. Cheers erupted over the comms, a surge of morale that resonated throughout the Vanguard. Alara turned to Reyes. Let's give them something to remember. The battle began with a blinding flash of light as the Alliance fleet opened fire. Beams of plasma and energy streaked through the void, lighting up the darkness like a chaotic dance of destruction. The vanguard moved with precision, weaving through the onslaught while its smaller ships harried the enemy with hit-and-run tactics. Shields holding at 70%, Malik reported. But they're focusing fire on us. Of course they are, Reyes muttered, firing off a volley of countermeasures. They know we're the command ship. Alara's mind raced as she analyzed the battlefield. The Alliance ships were powerful but predictable, relying on their superior numbers to overwhelm. She spotted an opening, a weakness in their formation. Reyes, target that frigate on the right flank, she ordered. If we take it out, we can punch through their line. The vanguard unleashed a concentrated burst of ion fire, striking the frigate's engines. The ship sputtered, its systems failing, and drifted into the path of another Alliance vessel, causing a chain reaction that left a gap in the formation. We're through, Malik called out. Push forward, Alara commanded. Head straight for the planet's atmosphere. The vanguard surged ahead, its escorts covering its retreat as the Alliance fleet scrambled to regroup. As they entered Zareth Prime's upper atmosphere, the ship shuddered under the strain of the turbulence. Brace yourselves, Alara warned. This is going to get rough. The vanguard touched down in a remote area outside the capital, its landing hidden by the dense forest that surrounded the city. Alara and a small team disembarked, their movements swift and purposeful. The data they had retrieved pinpointed the location of the hidden archive, beneath the Grand Council Hall, a fortress-like structure at the city's heart. We'll have to move fast, Alara said, her voice low but firm. The longer we're here, the more likely they'll find us. Reyes adjusted his rifle, his expression grim. Let's hope this archive is worth it. They navigated the forest's edge, using the cover of darkness to avoid detection. The city loomed ahead, its spires glowing with a cold, artificial light. As they approached the council hall, they encountered their first obstacle, a security perimeter bristling with automated turrets and patrols. Suggestions? Reyes asked. Alara studied the layout, her mind working quickly. We create a distraction. Malik, patch into their comms and send a false alert to the far side of the perimeter. That should pull their patrols away. Malik nodded, his fingers flying over his portable console. Moments later, alarms blared in the distance, and the patrols scrambled to respond. The team slipped through the perimeter, moving with practiced efficiency. Inside the council hall, the air was cold and sterile, the corridors lit by an eerie blue glow. They encountered little resistance, the distraction working better than expected. Following the map from the decrypted data, they descended into the lower levels, where the archive was hidden. When they reached the vault, they found it sealed behind a massive reinforced door. Reyes examined the control panel, his brow furrowing. This is going to take some time. Do it fast, Alara urged. We won't have long before they figure out we're here. Reyes worked quickly, bypassing the complex security protocols with a mix of skill and sheer determination. Finally, the door slid open, revealing a chamber filled with holographic displays and data terminals. Alara stepped inside, her breath catching as she took in the sheer scale of the archive. Rows of data banks stretched into the distance, each one containing fragments of history that had been erased from the galaxy's collective memory. This is it, she said softly. Everything they tried to hide. Malik began downloading the data, his portable device filling rapidly with files. As they worked, Alara scanned the holographic displays, her heart sinking as she uncovered the truth. The Alliance had erased humanity not out of fear of their power, but out of fear of their influence. Humanity's adaptability and innovation had threatened to disrupt the rigid order the Alliance had built. They were afraid of change, she murmured. Afraid of what we represented. Suddenly, the sound of boots echoed down the corridor. The team turned, weapons raised, as Alliance soldiers poured into the chamber. At their head was Cale Morinth, his expression a mask of cold fury. You should have stayed in the shadows, Captain, he said. Now, you've forced my hand. Alara stepped forward, her weapon steady. The truth is out, Chancellor. You can't bury it again.
Kale smirked.
Perhaps. But you won't live to see it. The room erupted into chaos as the two sides clashed. Alara and her team fought with desperate determination, their movements precise and coordinated. Malik shielded the data terminal, ensuring the download continued even as the battle raged around them. When the last of the soldiers fell, Alara turned to Malik. Status. Download complete, he replied, holding up the device. Alara nodded. Then let's finish this. As they escaped the council hall, Alara broadcasted the data across the Alliance's networks, ensuring that every citizen would see the truth. The response was immediate. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds as the people demanded answers, their trust in the Alliance shattered. Back aboard the Vanguard, Alara stood on the bridge, watching the chaos unfold. For the first time in centuries, humanity's voice was being heard. Reyes joined her, his expression weary but triumphant. We did it. Alara nodded. This is just the beginning. They thought we were myths, but now they know the truth. We're here to stay. The Elysium Vanguard disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. The Elysium Vanguard drifted silently in deep space, its crew recovering from the chaos of Zareth Prime. Captain Alara Quinn stood on the observation deck, staring out at the void. The galaxy was different now. The broadcast of the Alliance's hidden crimes had ignited a fire across its territories, one that no one could extinguish. For the first time in centuries, the suppressed truth of humanity's erasure was known, and the galaxy was watching. Reyes stepped onto the deck, a data pad in hand. You should get some rest, Captain. It's been a hell of a day. Alara shook her head. Not yet. There's too much to do. How's the crew? Tired but alive, Reyes replied. Morale's high. They know we made history back there. She turned to him, her expression serious. And the rest of the fleet? Reyes hesitated. Some damage, but nothing critical. The escorts held their own. We lost a few drones, but no major casualties. It could have been worse. Alara exhaled slowly, her mind racing. We need to stay ahead of this. Kale won't take this lying down. He's too proud. Reyes nodded. You're probably right. But right now, the Alliance is in chaos. Protests are breaking out on half their core worlds. People are demanding answers. And that's exactly why we can't stop, Alara said. If we don't keep pushing, they'll find a way to spin this, to bury it again. The protests spreading across the Alliance were unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. On planets like Thalmus and Varel, citizens marched in the streets, demanding justice for humanity and accountability from their leaders. The broadcast of the Hidden Archive had shattered the carefully curated image of the Alliance, revealing a government built on lies and suppression. In the Grand Council Hall, High Chancellor Kale Morinth faced his most difficult challenge yet. The council chambers, once a place of quiet authority, had devolved into a cacophony of voices. Representatives shouted over one another, their unity fractured by the weight of the revelations. This is a disaster, Kale, one shouted. The people are turning against us. We need to address this. Another pointed an accusatory finger. You said humanity was a threat, but now they've exposed our crimes. How do you expect us to defend this? Kale's voice cut through the noise, cold and sharp. Enough. We will handle this as we always have. The protests will die down. The people will be placated. And what about the humans? A representative asked. They're rallying support. If we don't act, they'll gain more allies. Kale's jaw tightened. The humans will be dealt with. Prepare the fleet. If they think they can challenge us, they will learn the cost of defiance. On the Vanguard, Alara gathered her senior officers in the war room. A holographic map of the galaxy displayed hotspots of unrest, each one a potential spark for change. This is our chance, Alara said, her tone firm. The Alliance is vulnerable. If we can rally support from the independent systems, we can build a coalition strong enough to challenge them. Reyes leaned forward, his expression skeptical. That's a big biff, Captain. Most of these systems have been neutral for centuries. They don't trust the Alliance, but they don't trust us either. Then we'll give them a reason to, Alara replied. We'll show them what the Alliance has done. We'll show them that humanity isn't the enemy they've been told we are. Malik spoke up from his corner of the table. We've already seen some interest. A few systems have reached out, asking for more information. They're curious. That's a start, Alara said. But we need more than curiosity. We need action. Reyes, I want you to lead a delegation to the Veral system. They've been critical of the Alliance for years. If anyone's willing to stand with us, it's them. Reyes raised an eyebrow. You trust me to play diplomat? I trust you to speak the truth, Alara said. That's all we need. Reyes' mission to Veral marked the beginning of humanity's efforts to build alliances. The delegation, composed of human representatives and sympathetic allies, met with the Verillian Council in a grand chamber carved from shimmering crystal. The Verillians, a proud and stoic people, listened intently as Reyes presented the evidence of the Alliance's crimes. Our fight isn't just about humanity, Reyes said, his voice steady and passionate. It's about freedom. It's about exposing the lies that have kept us divided for centuries. The Alliance fears the truth because it threatens their control. But together, we can stand against them. The Verillian leader, a tall figure with iridescent scales, studied him carefully. You speak with conviction, Commander. But words alone will not win this war. What guarantees can you offer that your cause will succeed? Reyes met the leader's gaze. I can't promise victory, but I can promise that we'll fight with everything we have. And if we stand together, we'll have a chance to build something better. The chamber fell silent as the Verillians deliberated. Finally, the leader spoke. We will consider your proposal. But know this. If we join you, we will expect you to honor your words. Reyes nodded. You have my word. Back on Zareth Prime, Kale's plans for retaliation were already in motion. The Alliance fleet, bolstered by reinforcements, prepared to launch a decisive strike against the Vanguard and its allies. Kale stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes cold and calculating. They think they've won, he said, addressing his officers. They think they can rally the galaxy against us. But they've underestimated our resolve. Humanity will be nothing more than a fleeting memory. The fleet launched, its massive ships cutting through the void like blades. Their target, the independent systems that had begun to align with humanity. Kale intended to send a message, one that would quash any hope of rebellion. When word of the fleet's movements reached the Vanguard, Alara knew they were running out of time. The Alliance's retaliation threatened not only her ship, but also the fragile alliances they were building. We can't take on their entire fleet, Reyes said, his voice laced with frustration. Not with the resources we have. We don't have to, Alara replied. If we can disrupt their supply lines, we can slow them down. Force them to overextend. Malik chimed in. We've identified key supply depots in the Zaylan sector. If we hit them, it could buy us time. Alara nodded. Do it. And prepare the fleet for an ambush. If Kale wants a fight, we'll give him one he won't forget. The ambush was a calculated risk. The Vanguard and its allies lay in wait in the asteroid belt of the Zaylan sector, their ships hidden among the rocky debris. When the Alliance fleet entered the sector, the trap was sprung. The battle was fierce and chaotic. The smaller, more agile ships of the independent systems darted around the larger Alliance vessels, exploiting their slower response times. The Vanguard led the charge, its advanced technology giving it an edge in the firefight. Target their command ship, Alara ordered. If we can take it out, the rest will falter. Reyes nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. Locking on. A burst of ion fire struck the Alliance flagship, disabling its shields and leaving it vulnerable. The independent fleet pressed the advantage, forcing the Alliance to retreat. As the enemy ships jumped to hyperspace, a cheer erupted across the Vanguard. The battle had been won, but Alara knew the war was far from over. In the aftermath, Alara addressed her crew and allies. Today, we proved that unity can overcome tyranny. But this is just the beginning. The Alliance will come back, stronger than before. We must be ready. Her words resonated with everyone present. The fight for humanity's place in the galaxy was not just about survival, it was about hope, freedom, and the promise of a better future. As the Vanguard set its course for the next mission, Alara stood on the bridge, her resolve unshaken. The galaxy was waking up, and humanity was no longer a myth. They were a force to be reckoned with, and their story was far from over. The Elysium Vanguard orbited quietly above the fractured planet of Varel. Below, the surface glimmered with the faint lights of cities still recovering from protests and skirmishes. Captain Alara Quinn stood at the center of the bridge, her face lined with exhaustion but her eyes filled with determination. The Alliance was on the defensive, its fleet weakened, its leadership shaken. But Alara knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of the hardest battle yet. "Status update," she called. Lieutenant Malik responded from the comms station. "The independent systems have officially declared support for us. Varel's forces are mobilizing, and we're getting reports of defections from Alliance military units across the outer territories." Reyes leaned against the edge of the console, arms crossed. "That's good news, but it's not enough. Kale still controls the core worlds, and his fleet is regrouping near Zareth Prime. He's digging in." Alara nodded. "He's desperate. And desperate leaders make mistakes." Reyes arched an eyebrow. "Desperate leaders also destroy everything in their path. What's the plan?" Alara took a deep breath. "We end this. We take the fight to Zareth Prime." The room fell silent. Even Malik, who was usually quick with a quip, paused to process the enormity of her words. Reyes broke the silence. "You're talking about a full-scale assault on the most fortified planet in the galaxy." Alara met his gaze. "Exactly. We don't have a choice. If we wait, Kale will rebuild, and we'll lose the momentum we've gained. This is our chance to show the galaxy that the Alliance's era of fear and control is over." The combined fleet of the independent systems and defected Alliance ships gathered near Varel. It was a motley collection of vessels, from sleek frigates to repurposed cargo ships bristling with makeshift weapons. Yet, what they lacked in polish, they made up for in determination. Alara addressed the fleet from the Vanguard's bridge, her voice broadcast across every ship. "This is Captain Quinn. Today, we fight not just for humanity, but for every species the Alliance has silenced, every voice they've tried to erase. They built their empire on lies, and today we shatter it. Stay strong, stay united, and remember, we are the light in their darkness." The response was immediate. Cheers echoed through the comms, a collective roar of defiance that shook even the most battle-hardened veterans. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, emerging on the outskirts of Zareth Prime. The sight before them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The planet's defense grid lit up like a constellation, its orbit swarming with Alliance warships. At the center of the formation loomed Kale's flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weaponry. "Malik, tactical analysis," Alara ordered. "They've got us outgunned 3-1, Malik replied. "Their defense grid is fully operational, and their fleet is positioned to intercept us before we can reach the planet." Reyes exhaled sharply. "It's a fortress." Alara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Every fortress has a weakness. Malik, focus on the defense grid. Reyes, coordinate with the fleet. We need to punch a hole through their formation and disable that grid. Without it, we have a chance." The battle began with a ferocity that defied imagination. The Alliance fleet moved in tight formation, its disciplined maneuvers contrasting sharply with the chaotic but creative tactics of the independent fleet. The Vanguard led the charge, weaving through enemy fire and striking key targets with surgical precision. "Shields at 60%, Malik reported. "They're focusing everything on us." "Let them," Alara said. "Reyes, target that cruiser on our left. We need to clear a path." The Vanguard's weapons roared to life, tearing through the cruiser's defenses. As it exploded in a blinding flash, the independent fleet surged forward, exploiting the gap to press deeper into the Alliance's formation. Inside his flagship, Kale Morinth watched the battle unfold with a mixture of fury and frustration. His fleet was holding but barely. The humans and their allies fought with a tenacity that defied logic, turning what should have been a decisive victory into a desperate struggle. Send reinforcements to the defense grid, Kale ordered, his voice cold and sharp. We cannot let them reach the surface. One of his officers hesitated. Chancellor, our reinforcements are stretched thin. If we divert more ships. Do as I say, Kale snapped. If the grid falls, we lose everything. Back on the Vanguard, Alera's plan was coming together. The fleet had reached the edge of the defense grid, but the fighting was brutal. Every inch gained came at a cost. Malik, status on the grid? Alera asked. We're close, but we need more time, Malik replied. Their reinforcements are making it harder to get a clear shot at the control hub. Alera's mind raced. Reyes, take a strike team and board that hub. If we can't disable it remotely, we'll do it the hard way. Reyes nodded. On it. Just don't get blown up while I'm gone. Alera allowed herself a faint smile. I'll do my best. Reyes and his team launched in a small shuttle, weaving through enemy fire to dock with the defense hub. The structure was a labyrinth of corridors and control rooms, its walls humming with the energy of the grid it powered. Stay sharp, Reyes muttered as the team moved through the facility. They'll be expecting us. They encounter resistance almost immediately, Alliance soldiers entrenched in defensive positions. The firefight was intense, but Reyes' team pressed forward, using their smaller numbers and agility to outmaneuver the defenders. Control rooms ahead, Reyes said, glancing at the map on his wrist display. Let's move. As Reyes' team breached the control room, the Vanguard continued to hold the line. The ship shuddered under the impact of another barrage, alarms blaring as systems struggled to compensate. Shields at 20%, Malik called out. We can't take much more of this. Alera gripped the armrests of her chair. Hold steady. Reyes will get it done. Inside the control room, Reyes' team worked quickly, bypassing security protocols and disabling key systems. The defense grid flickered, then went dark. Grid's down, Reyes reported. You're clear to advance. With the grid offline, the independent fleet surged forward, overwhelming the remaining Alliance ships and forcing them into retreat. The Vanguard led the charge to the planet's surface, landing near the Grand Council Hall. Alera and her team disembarked, pushing through the ruins of the once mighty fortress. Inside, they found Kale, his defiance finally giving way to desperation. It's over, Kale, Alera said, her voice steady. The galaxy knows the truth. Your reign is done. Kale glared at her. You think you've won? The Alliance is more than one man. It will rise again. Not if we build something better, Alera replied. Something built on truth, not lies. Kale's shoulders sagged, the weight of defeat finally sinking in. He said nothing as Alera's team took him into custody. In the weeks that followed, the Alliance crumbled. The independent systems formed a new coalition, one dedicated to transparency and cooperation. Humanity, once a forgotten myth, now stood at the center of this new era, a symbol of resilience and hope. Alera stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the stars. Reyes joined her, a rare smile on his face. We did it, he said. Alera nodded. We did. But the real work starts now. As the Vanguard set its course for the next mission, Alera felt a sense of peace. Humanity's story was no longer a forgotten legend. It was a legacy, one that would shape the galaxy for generations to come.